The peculiar name of Bay Chaleur fire ship refers to a weird phenomena attached to a legend about a haunted ship, very often scientifically explained as St. Elmo's fires or will-o'-the-wisp. The phenomena, occasionally seen in Bathurst, New Brunswick or across the bay in New Carlisle, Quebec, often takes the form of an arc of light, usually seen before a storm. But some accounts speak of flaming three-mast galley apparition, as a whole ship composed of unexplainable lights. Local accounts of the supernatural vessel claim that it is possible to hear the screams of the burning ship passengers by submerging one's feet in the Chaleur Bay waters. Sightings are claimed to be most frequent on hot summer nights. No wonder many legends and telltales arose about the weird, unexplained occurrence. One version of the legend ties a conquest and conflict with the natives to the origin. A Portuguese captain arrived on the shores of Heron Island in Chaleur Bay in 1501. Upon his second trip to the region to capture more Mi'kmaq natives for the slave trade, but he was tortured and killed by the locals who did not remember his presence well, as he hurt their community before. A year later his brother came looking for him and was also attacked by the locals. Their ship caught fire and both men jumped into the waters and swore to haunt the bay from that moment on. It is said that many people of the Quebec, not only natives but many settlers, witnessed the apparition. One eyewitness named only as Mrs. Pettigrew, claimed to see the apparition of the vessel at dusk one summer's evening in 1878 somewhere on the northern side of the island. She claims she did not only see the ship, but its ghastly crew as well. She recalls how a ghostly figure of an unknown sailor appeared at the corner of the farmhouse, and reportedly asked her to help him, as he had burns all over his body. When she turned away from the figure to run inside, it apparently brushed by her and to her horror she realized the burned captain was legless. And as obviously, living people don't hang around hovering in the air without their lower limbs attached, she rightfully thought the visitor was a ghost and ran the hell inside her house. However, some inhabitants of Brunswick claim a different version. One lady's version tells of a group of pirates who killed a woman. With her dying words she cast a curse upon them that for as long as the world is, may you burn on the bay. Whatever the real reason for the hauntings may be, the tale of the fire ship of Baie des Chaleurs remains one of the dark mysteries of famed phantom ships from all over the world. The name of this phantom vessel, the Chasse Galerie, literally translates into the enchanted canoe, the bewitched canoe, or the flying canoe, and all of these names fit the apparition of this peculiar ship perfectly. The story has origins in a French legend about a rich nobleman named Galerie. Coincidence? I don't think so, who loved to hunt. He loved it so much actually, that he refused to attend Sunday Mass, going hunting all day instead. As punishment for this sin he was condemned to fly forever through the night skies, chased by galloping horses and howling wolves, like some twisted version of legendary Wild Hunt. You may notice a distinct and interesting lack of ships or any other vessels in the legend. This changed when the first French settlers arrived at the Canadian borders on their canoes, when the boats have been incorporated into the legend, and from that moment on the huntsman Galerie flew the skies on a galerie, a French canoe. Later the legend added a tale about a group of voyagers who wanted to meet their beloved on faraway land before the sun set, but physically it was impossible to swim all the way in such a short time. So, they made a pact with the devil to let their canoe boat fly, and such airborne vessel was fast enough. They all reached their homes and wives on time. As all deals with the devil, though, it had a catch. When the sailors were on the board, they were forbidden to speak God's name, or touch any holy object. While returning back to the sea next sunrise, they accidentally flew too close to the nearby church. This caused a supernatural storm to rip them off the track and cause them to hit a nearby pine, rendering them unconscious or dead. According to one of the variations of that legend, the condemned souls of the deal-stricken sailors were dragged to hell, but once a year on the New Year's Eve, the crew manages to escape hell and ride through the skies on their enchanted flying boat, which is where the hellish boat is said to be witnessed by the people. The ghost ship of Northumberland Strait is exactly what the name suggests. A phantom vessel appearing on the Northumberland Strait, Canada. The ship's appearance is said to be otherworldly, with constant burning a blaze-like glow to it going as far back as to 1,800 ties. The apparition is frequently described as beautiful schooner that has 3 or 4 masts with pure white sails, all of which are said to suddenly become completely engulfed in flames as onlookers watch. Unlike in other instances on my list, this one has no legend of origin, nor any real-life events behind the occurrences. No one knows what is that ship, who owned it, why it appears and what caused it to become a ghost in the first place. In 2015, the Canadian Hydrographic Service discovered an unidentified wooden shipwreck in Pictou Harbour. The 60-meter vessel sits upright in 12 to 15 meters of water, featuring large, intact wooden propellers and signs of fire damage. But whether or not this ship was in any way connected to the apparition is unknown. In 1905, New Brunswick scientist William Francis Scannong proposed that the legend may have arisen due to natural electrical phenomena such as St. Elmo's fire, or natural fog reflecting moonlight, but the locals have their own explanation. Despite no backstory to the ship, many local legends arose from the reported eyewitnesses. Once in 1900, a group of unnamed sailors boarded a small rowboat in Charlottetown Harbor and raced toward the phantom ship they saw burning, to rescue the crew only to have the ship vanish upon arriving at the spot. And these might not only be legends. In January 2008, 17-year-old Matthew Giguère told a local newspaper he believed he saw the legendary phantom ship in the Tatamagouche Bay, describing it as a bright white and gold ship. The 21st century sightings do not end on one-person account only. Tatamagouche mountain resident, named as Melvin Longueuil, also claims he saw the ship one night in October, explaining, "I believe in all that stuff and I don't know what else it would be." Interesting, how even in modern times, when we appear to have logical explanation for everything, there still are people who witness unexplainable phenomena. As one may expect, such mystical enigmas cause a great deal of publicity. And so, many songs and art forms have been made in honor of the mysterious phenomena. Lenny Gallant, a Canadian singer-songwriter from Rustico, wrote a song about it called Tales of the Phantom Ship. The fame of the apparition goes beyond the artistry. In June 2014, Canada Post issued a special stamp depicting the Northumberland Strait ghost ship. The stamp was issued on Friday the 13th as part of a series of Canadian ghost story stamps. It's the only ghost ship I know of that got its own stamp. Isn't that cool? If we take the infamous Flying Dutchman out of the picture, the Mary Celeste must be easily one of the most famous and recognizable ghost ships of all time. Built in Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia, and launched under British registration as Amazon in 1861, it was later given its famous name, upon being transferred onto American ownership and registration in 1868. The sailings of Mary Celeste was relatively uneventful, until it was suddenly discovered, adrift and deserted, despite leaving with crew and captain, in the Atlantic Ocean off the Azores on December 4, 1872. At the salvage hearings in Gibraltar following the ship's recovery, the court's officers considered various possibilities of foul play, including mutiny by Mary Celeste's crew, piracy by the Dei Gratia crew or others, and conspiracy to carry out insurance or salvage fraud. No convincing evidence supported these theories, so soon new owners claimed Mary Celeste and sailed with her. Sadly, in 1885, the vessel's captain deliberately wrecked it off the coast of Haiti as part of an attempted insurance fraud. This extreme act of assholery only added fuel to the fire of people talking about supposed mystical occurrences surrounding the ship, but at that moment, these were just words. The fact that the remains of the deliberately wrecked ship fueled the conspiracy theories, telling that the ship was taken by supernatural forces. Furthermore, in 1879, a British ship captain John Austin reported encountering the Mary Celeste near the Strait of Gibraltar. He claimed the ship's sails were illuminated in an unnatural, ghostly manner despite being seen at night. According to Austin's words, as his crew drew nearer, the unknown vessel reportedly vanished into thin air. The captain firmly believed he saw the phantom of the tragically wrecked ship. The SS Bannockburn was a Canadian-registered steel-hulled freighter that disappeared on Lake Superior in snowy weather on November 21, 1902. It was last sighted by the captain of a passing vessel, the SS Algonquin, around noon of that day, but minutes later disappeared with the wreck never to be found. The vessel had technically sunk once before, on the morning of October 15, 1897, under Captain John Irving, laden with grain and destined for Kingston, Ontario from Chicago, Illinois, but the ship had been found and salvaged and no deaths have occurred during the accident. The unlucky vessel had also been badly damaged several months prior to the first sinking, when it ran on the rocks near Snake Island Light on the morning of April 27 while at full speed. Back then, though, the vessel managed to get back on its feet and reach its destination with no further adventures. The final voyage of the Bannockburn began at the Canadian Lakehead near what is now known as Thunder Bay, under Captain George R. Wood, loaded with lots of wheat. The cargo caused a minor downbounding, but it was soon corrected and the ship was all safe and sound. Until next day, on November 21, Captain James McMath of the upbound Algonquin, another big ship sailing these waters that day, witnessed Bannockburn, but soon lost sight of it. Attributing it to the weather, he thought nothing of it. Meanwhile, where our ship sailed, a huge hail started. The Bannockburn was reported overdue the following morning at the Sioux Locks, but given the weather the previous night, this was not considered unusual. When it still did not report several days later, however, the fear that ship had been lost began to grow. So, a search team was sent to look for the vessel, or rather, its remains. The search was unsuccessful though, and the wreck of the ship has never been found, with the exception of a life preserver, being only part that was found and no bodies were ever recovered. No sign of any survivors either. It's as if it disappeared along with the crew. This is particularly sad, as the crew consisted of very young people, some as young as 17 or 20 years old, with the oldest person on deck being the captain, Mr. Wood, who was only 37. The youngest person being a 16-year-old Wilsman, Arthur Callaham. All these lives taken so soon. And to this day, no one has ever found them. If this is not tragic, I don't know what is. Within a year of the tragic disappearance, Bannockburn had acquired a reputation as a ghost ship and became known as the Flying Dutchman of the Great Lakes. Despite extensive research at the time of the happening, the ship's fate remains an unsolved mystery. No dates or names are being given to particular separate sightings, or incidents, but for decades onwards, sailors have reported seeing the vessel appearing in storms, often with a distinctive appearance, in a fog or mist, or sometimes with visible skeletons on deck. I don't know how about you, this would scare the hell out of me. People who claim to see the eerie apparition of the tragically gone vessel claim they believe that the reason it appears again and again is as if the crew wanted desperately to reach their destination, an opportunity forever robbed off them in life. Suddenly, these scary skeletons look a bit more sad than scary, don't you think? There's not much info about what I dubbed the spectral galleon of Chapel Cove. The mysterious vessel has no backstory and no other reported sightings. In 1895, an apparition of a large, many-decked sailing vessel suddenly appeared in Chapel Cove, Newfoundland. According to folklore, pirates supposedly buried riches in the cove, and it is said that those who have gone in search of the treasure have either observed the appearance of the phantom ship, or, interestingly, saw it on land. The supposed sightings only took place this one year and were not reported before, nor after. The lack of any backstory, nor ties to known commercial or war vessels is also interesting. It's like the ship appeared and disappeared as quietly as it lived in this world, without a trace to be found in books. Interesting and mysterious, don't you think? In my Water Spirits from Over the World series, I have touched upon the El Kalush, also known as the Barkoish, or as Bouquet d'Arte, and having even more folk names among different tribes. This phantom ship is the key to and from the spirit world. Many people believe the ship is piloted by witches and demons and only appears at the night time to kidnap young women, rob houses and cause havoc and unrest. Alternatively, others believe it's the supreme water spirit Milialobo, along with his children, Sirena, Pincoya and Pincoya, who control the ship, and instead of kidnapping the living, they carry the souls of the dead, to take them to underwater paradise. Those that believe in the malevolent witch vessel theory, attest that the ship captures sailors aboard other sailed boats, by first attracting them with alluring orchestral music, to snatch them when the spirits are close enough. Allegedly, ordinary people who board it, fall into a kind of stupor, preventing them from divulging any secrets about the ship. Others, less lucky, are believed to go insane after witnessing the apparition. Others believe that the apparition is benevolent. These who call it Merry Merchant Ship believe that it houses the souls of dead sailors, who worked for the sea god and his many semi-divine apprentices, such as the merman Milialobo, and his enchanting mere-people children, the young and alluring Sirena and the incestuous married couple of ambitious Pincoya and artistic Pincoya. It is also stated that the sorcerers board this magical ship, to return from a voyage that they make every 3 months in order to strengthen their mystical powers. The vessel is not a prison for the souls, be it living or dead, but instead a way of transportation to and from the world of the spirit to the world of the dead. Much like ships in physical world are mostly a means of voyage. Sometimes, the living who manage to glimpse the elusive Kalush, claim that the ghostly crew aboard it have a peculiar deformity, either one leg bent backwards, or the same leg attached straight to their spine, forcing them into lump-like movement. The reason for this deformity is never explained. The ambiguous nature of the magic ship made the apparition both feared and respected. From one hand, it's the dangerous phantom that can kidnap you, make you enslaved to it, or return you with a stroke of amnesia or insanity, but from the other hand, when you pass on to the other side, the same ship would gladly accept you on its board to sail into your destined underworld safe and sound. The Copenhagen was a Danish-owned, British-built 5-masted bark used as a naval training vessel, built by the firm of Ramage and Ferguson at Leith in Scotland and had hull number 256. It was commissioned by the Danish East Asiatic Company as a sail training ship. Its original commission of January 1914 was well underway at the onset of the First World War, when the British Admiralty commandeered the first commission as an oil fuel tender. These humble beginnings proved to be a start of a soon-to-be great fame of the ship. The second commission included for a 4-cylinder diesel engine by Burmeister and Wain capable of propelling the ship at 6 knots. On this mission, the vessel was classified by Lloyd's of London as Class 100A1, the highest classification of the age. Known at that time as the Big Dane, it was the largest sailing ship in the world when completed. It was 131 meters long from tip to tail, with a nearly 119-meter-long deck and grossed 3,965 tons empty, with a capacity of 5,200 tons. Needless to say, it was not a small boat. It was a giant, whose size matched its reputation. From 1921 to 1928 the ship made 9 commercial voyages, visiting nearly every continent and completing a full world circumnavigation in September 30, 1921. However, on 1927 last trip, under Captain Christensen, 300 miles south of Callao on the west coast of South America, the vessel lost a propeller blade and had to go to Callao for repair. Nothing out of the ordinary happened that time though. On September 21, 1928 the Copenhagen departed from Nørresundby in Vendsyssel for Buenos Aires on its 10th, and ultimately final, voyage. The captain was Hans Andersen. 75 persons were aboard, including 26 crew and 45 cadets. The goal was to unload a shipload of chalk and bagged cement in Buenos Aires, take on another load of cargo and sail for Melbourne, and then bring a shipment of Australian wheat back to Europe. The ship arrived at Buenos Aires on November 17, 1928, impressing the locals, in particular emigrant Danes. The cargo was unloaded, however. The departure was delayed as there were no paying commissions to take the cargo to Australia. Finally, on 14th of December, Captain Anderson decided to ship out to Australia without a cargo. The voyage was expected to take 45 days. On 22nd of December, the Copenhagen exchanged radio messages with the Norwegian steamer William Bloomer, indicating they were about 900 miles from Tristan da Cunha and that all is well. The Bloomer attempted to contact the Copenhagen again later that night, but received no response. The ship was never heard from again, and soon was officially reported missing. Search and rescue efforts were not launched immediately after Copenhagen dropped out of contact, due to the length of the voyage to Australia, and the fact that Anderson routinely went long periods without sending a message. But after there was no word about the ship's whereabouts in the following months, people began to worry. 4 months after Copenhagen was last seen and heard from, the Danish East Asiatic Company dispatched a motor vessel, the Mexico, to Tristan da Cunha. Residents reported having seen a large 5-masted ship with its foremast broken on January 21, 1929. However, it had not attempted to land on the island. Later on, both Mexico and USA joined forces in search effort. The search for the Copenhagen for several months, but found no sign of it. The Danish government officially declared the ship and its crew were lost at sea. For the next 2 years after the Copenhagen's disappearance, there were a number of sightings of a mysterious 5-masted ship fitting its description in the Pacific, fueling further speculation about the vessel. Early reports came from Chilean fishermen. Then in July 1930, the crew of an Argentine freighter sighted a 5-masted phantom ship during a gale. And the sightings of the alleged ghosts might not all be far-fetched, because in 1935, human remains and the remains of a lifeboat were found partly buried in the sand along the southwest coast of Africa. The wreck and corpses were believed to come from the infamous lost ship. Palatine Light is an apparition reported near Block Island and Rhode Island, said to be the ghost ship of a lost 18th-century vessel named the Palatine, often linked to real-life shipwreck of a vessel named Princess Augusta wrecked in 1738. The 220-ton British ship Augusta sailed from Rotterdam in August 1738 under Captain George Long and a crew of 14, transporting 240 immigrants to English colonies in America. The passengers were German Palatines, natives of the Palatinate region, and as such the ship was described as the Palatine ship by many. But the voyage was far from peaceful. Actually, it was pretty nightmarish. First, the water they drank got contaminated, poisoning 200 people of the crew and killing them in the process. Then, bad weather hit. Huge rains, winds and storms that soon pushed the ship northwest to its destined course. Conditions worsened, food rations depleted, and the captain tried to fight against the hostile elements, but to no avail. Severely damaged and leaking Augusta have been finally directed to Block Island, but it didn't find peace there. It wrecked amid a snowstorm at Sandy Point on the island's northernmost end at 2 p.m. December 27, 1738. Although some survivors came out victoriously alive from the terrible wreck, as much as 20 deceased had to be buried by the helpful inlanders who decided to lend the remaining crew a helping hand. The ship was beyond saving, though. The useless wreck have been pushed to the waters, to sink and soon forgotten, but not for long. On the Saturday between Christmas and New Year's Eve, there are still sporadic reports from the locals of seeing a burning ship sail past. Additionally, rich oral tradition regarding the event exists, with many sightings being reported during the late 18th and 19th centuries. Sometimes, the witnesses describe hearing a haunting scream of a woman accompanying the apparition of the burning, blazing ship. Locals speculate that the screams could belong to a female member of the crew, who refused to leave the ship, willing to sink with it instead. This is all speculation, however. The Lady Lovibond was a now legendary schooner that is alleged to have been wrecked on the Goodwin Sands, southeast England, on February 13, 1748, and is said to reappear there every 50 years as a ghost. No contemporary records of the ship or its supposed sinking have ever been found, however, so its existence in the first place is speculative. According to a legend, the ship was at sea on 13th of February because her captain, Simon Reed, or Simon Peel, depending which version of the legend you hear and who tells it, was getting married and planned to throw a party at the sea. Despite the long-standing sailors' superstition that it was bad luck to bring a woman on board, Reed had brought his bride Annetta with him on the ship. This pissed off the captain's first mate, who had long since been jealous of beautiful Annetta's love. The first mate, John Rivers, finally snapped. He killed a steerman with a hit to the head with a club, then seized the wheel, and before anyone noticed anything's amiss, the jealous rival moved the ship off the course and into a collision. Thus, all crew, the jealous rival, the captain and his bride-to-be sank and died on that day. Whether the story is true, or made up, the meetings with this ghost vessel are said to keep happening. The first supposed sighting of the Phantom Lady Lovebond, on February 13, 1798, was reported by at least 2 ships, the Eden Bridge, captained by James Westlake, and a fishing smack. The appearance convinced local seamen that a wreck had occurred, and so they sent out lifeboats from Dealport in hopes of rescuing the survivors. Of course, when they reached the point, nothing was there. According to the supposed eyewitnesses, the ship gave off a weird, supernatural vibe-giving glow of eerie white light. Most of the accounts about supposed sightings from that moment on claim the ship appears the most often on the Goodwin Sands waves of the coast of England. Interestingly, the same place seems like a hot spot for other ghost ship hauntings as well. Shrewsbury and SS Montrose were also alleged to be witnessed in that location. The medieval ship belonging to the legendary Baron Falkenberg appears to haunt the North Sea of Germany ever since the tragic incidents in his life led to his untimely demise. The wedding of Baron's own brother to his beloved wife went normally until the groom, while drunk, started sexually assaulting Falkenberg. Furious, the Baron killed his brother by smashing a wine bottle on his head. Discovering her husband dead, the bride went out to warn others, screaming in terror. Baron wanted to stop her, confessing his love for her, but seeing what he had done, she said she preferred to die than to wed him. Enraged, Falkenberg grabbed a nearby knife and plunged it into her heart, killing her. But the wedding guests were still around. They could still discover what he did and punish him. So, he ran out from the compound onto the beach, where he met a mysterious man standing near a boat that wasn't there before. The mysterious man stood up, seeing approaching Baron, and declared, "The captain has been expecting you," upon which he beckoned the man to enter the boat. Having no other option, this or be faced with the consequence of his crime, Baron got aboard and the boat soon took him towards a ghost-like grey ship. The Baron entered on that ship and he hasn't descended from it ever since. For 600 years he was forced to join the crew of the literal phantom ship, never able to descend onto dry land. Those who claim to see the apparition of the vessel, claim it to be surrounded by blue ghastly lights or flames. They claim the eerie illumination is the sign that the devil still has the Baron's soul, as well as other souls who entered the ship, in his grasp for eternity. Some Norsemen connect this legend to a Viking named Stott who was said to steal a ring from the gods. The legend goes that the Viking got turned into a forever burning skeleton as a punishment from the gods. It is said that the ship that took Baron Falkenberg under its demonic wings was the one poor Stott was forced to fuse into the mast of, for his greed. Hence, the eerie glow is said to come from the accursed Vikings' remains who are still alive, still suffering and still seeing all the other condemned souls sailing with him. The Octavius was a legendary 18th-century ghost ship. Whether or not the ship existed in the first place is questionable, and its existence is ruled as a myth or urban legend. The story's supposed background is that the Octavius had left England for the Orient in 1761, and successfully arrived at its destination the following year. The captain gambled on a return through the treacherous and then little-known Northwest Passage, with the unfortunate result of trapping the vessel in sea ice north of Alaska. Thus, The Octavius had made the Northwest Passage posthumously. The ship was never seen again after its encounter with the Herald, carried away by mighty winds. It is believed that the last entry in the log was from November 11, 1762, which meant that the ship had been lost in the Arctic for 13 years. As the log was frozen, it slipped from the binding, leaving only the first and the last few pages in. The legend further states the ship's last recorded position while the crew was still alive was 75 degrees north 160 degrees west, about 402 kilometers north of Utqiagvik, Alaska, named as Point Barrow in 1825, while the ship was discovered near Greenland. The SS Ringmaidon legend is tricky. From one hand, it's like what the Black Volga is to the Polish. Supposedly, someone, somewhere saw it and swears it's true, but no one knows that person and there's no evidence for the happening. Think like local urban legend. But from the other hand, the Silver Star crew that allegedly set out to search for the vessel was a real one, and receiving signals from ships for help was not uncommon back then. Then again, no information about any vessel by the name Ringmaidon being registered, setting off or going missing was ever recorded. Anyways, the legend goes that one day a distress signal was being sent out in an area south of the Solomon Islands. The base responded and a short dialogue started. Messages sent from the unknown vessel told that the crew are mostly dead, the captain is presumed dead and the ship is in danger. But the last message was an enigmatic, cut-short crew has. And soon after the signal went off, the Silver Star crew was sent to search for the vessel, which self-identified by the name SS Ringmaidon, but as soon as they reached the place the signal was being sent from, no vessel have been found, neither floating, nor sank. As if it completely disappeared from the face of the earth. But yeah, as I said before, the legend is mostly unsubstantiated by any recorded facts of said ship being made, registered or setting of, or even existing in the first place. Ship logs for the Silver Star did not show a record of any such rescue attempt. Bainton and others have put forward the possibility that accounts of, among others, the date, location, names of the ships involved, and circumstances of the accident might have been inaccurate or exaggerated, or that the story might be completely fictitious. But kind of like in local version of the Flying Dutchman, sightings of the apparition of this vessel are said to occur, but with no names or locations being given. These supposed apparition sightings might as well be just as made up as the story itself. The Mayawabuan are said to be a type of phantom ship carrying the souls of ghosts and people who died at the sea. The occurrence is said to frequently include will-o'-the-wisp like lights and unexplained laughter sounding, even though no one is around. A sudden, unexplained gust of wind accomplishes the apparition, that disappears along with the fading phantom. It is said that anyone who sees the Mayawabuan will have terrible visions, and if they return to shore, they are believed to die soon after. It is said if you sail too close to a Mayawabuan you will die in a shipwreck. The wind flowing from the northwest was said to be inauspicious to mortals, believed to carry with it the disembodied souls of those who died. It was only natural to tie the eerie wind believed to be supernatural with the ghost-carrying ship causing insanity and death. It used to go as far as the sailors and fishermen downright avoiding the seaborne escapades when this allegedly accursed wind blew. It was believed to put the living people on the sea in danger, exposing them to the destructive influence of ghost-filled air. The phantom ship usually appears at nighttime, when the ominous laughter sounds the loudest among the silence of the night, and the yin influence of the nighttime brings newfound strength and ferocity to the stalking ghosts seeking to grab a new soul to drag them into their domain, to sail on the ghost ship forever. People are said to be scared of the 15th day of each lunar month, as it is said to be the day when the disturbed, unrest souls are the most active, frequent and powerful. It is said that once a group of experienced sailors set out of that fateful night, and upon encountering the ghost ship, they one by one lose their mind and eventually committed suicide, or died by unexpected causes. Ghost ships tend to have a bad rep, mostly serving as cautionary tales and carrying the air of disturbing, Violent hostility, be it from the once human souls who seek rest, or evil spirits who have never been human in first place, they bring fright rather than comfort. And this is where the Takarabune differs. This floating vessel apparition is piloted not by vengeful spirits, or hungry ghosts, but by the 7 lucky gods. The divine appear during the 3 lasting days of the new year, starting on December 31st and ending on the January 2nd. The spirits do not seek to kidnap people or hurt them, but to bestow them with blessing. The mysterious ship descends from the heavens on these special days, filled with magic and occult lucky items, such as mystical hat of invisibility, a purse that never gets full no matter what you put in it, rolls of brocade and books and scrolls carrying the centuries-old wisdom of the gods. The ship has been so famed as a symbol of luck and good fortune, it fell into the mainstream art and superstition customs. Merchants and urban workers associate it with good fortune in business. According to one custom, placing a Takarabune wood block print beneath a pillow on the night of 2nd of January may induce a lucky dream, a sign that the year to come will be fortunate. Many Takarabune prints show a crane above and a turtle below, representative of longevity and felicity respectively. It is documented that the custom of familiarizing with the ghost ship by putting its image under a pillow began as a ritual among the nobility, in time becoming popular and crossing into the commoners as well. This is said to evolve from the concept of harai, spiritual cleansing, an ancient Japanese belief that spiritually unclean things can be cleansed or disposed of by washing them away down a river. A person's first dream of the new year was an auspicious one, and a bad dream foretold a bad year. Putting the 2 with 2 together, the communion with the ship at night could serve as a kind of prayer to the piloting lucky gods for a good, plentiful and harmonious year ahead, at this special time where the physical and the spiritual seem to intertwine to bring with them both physical and spiritual riches. The man, the vessel, the legend, the horror. The Flying Dutchman is arguably the most iconic and most recognizable phantom ship with its phantom captain and phantom crew among almighty sea vessel apparitions all over the world, being well-recognized legend in Europe, Africa and Americas alike. The first mentions of the legend have originated from the 17th century golden age of the Dutch East India Company, as well as affected and influenced the Dutch marine business as a whole. It is said that the captain Willem van der Decken have been cursed to never reach a port, after he was caught in a sea storm that he and his crew died in. Theories about why the ship is cursed fly around. Some say the captain was entangled in or directly involved with some gruesome crime and that's why the ship is now cursed to sail forever, or, alternatively, until their penalty expires and they are allowed to pass on, and its crew cannot transcend onto the other world. Some say the Captain van der Decken was outright a murderer and a pirate, and for these 2 offenses, the ship he sailed once, is now paying the ultimate price. The exact victim or victims of the crime are not known. It's unknown whether there was one or many victims, were they innocent or was the captain provoked beyond his reason? We don't know. The only thing we know is the cruel penalty. Never being able to exit their ship, never being able to rest after a voyage, never finding peace. Until the other world is not satisfied with their penalty. And people claim to witness it. And they witness it all around the world. The first known print reference to the ship appears in travels in various parts of Europe, Asia and Africa during a series of 30 years and upward from 1790, by John MacDonald. The author describes a vision many of the crew sailing to Cape of Africa saw they claimed was followed by constant bad weather afterwards, until they sailed back to port. In A Voyage to Botany Bay, 1795, an apparition of the ship is described, as tangible as if it was in front of the eyes of the observers. Its sails always flat and motionless, despite the raging winds, or the vessel constantly moving forward, as if the ship was moved not by the wind, or the paddles, but by some supernatural, untangible force. The crew claims that after returning to Europe from the African expedition, they were caught by such a strong sea storm they were lucky to survive through it. They firmly believed that the Flying Dutchman's apparition was either the cause or the omen of the impending danger. Some of the aforementioned crew members claim they saw the apparition of the ship flying or swimming at them at collision point with great speed, only to disappear, or turn into mist, when it was about to hit their ship. I can't imagine the terror they felt at that moment. And yet, no one ever proved that such vessel, or its dreaded captain, ever existed. Thomas Moore, an Irish writer and poet, claims the Flying Dutchman is seen frequently on the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, describing it as ominous, dark, with its sails always full as if wind was constantly blowing through them and moving as if it was blown by the wind, but the wind would be still and all the other vessels would be immobile. Another account comes from July 11, 1881, off the coast of Australia, where the vessel was allegedly seen by Prince George of Wales along with his brother, Prince Albert. Despite his people on the land not being able to see the apparition the nobleman witnessed. The sighting was said to be witnessed by 13 people, and completely missed by everyone else. These few that witnessed the phantom ship describe it as covered in small, phantom red lights, as if the whole ship was burning. A burning ship cross your waters and only 13 people are able to see it? Sounds either impossible or downright supernatural, proving that it could not be an ordinary ship. Africa, Australia or the waters of Europe, the Flying Dutchman gains a notable popularity as an incredibly dreaded, yet adored, phantom ship legend that many to this day swear by witnessing. The Phantom Waka, or the Phantom Canoe, is a native-born legend from the lands of New Zealand and has to do with the still-active volcano Mount Tarawera. In 1886, the volcano erupted on 10 June, preceded by a series of 30 earthquakes. At night, by 2:45 a.m. Mount Tarawera's 3 peaks had erupted, blasting 3 distinct columns of smoke and ash thousands of meters into the sky. The disaster ended up with destruction of nearby villages, with as much as 153 civilians killed. The eruption was also believed to have destroyed the world-famous pink and white terraces. However, 125 years after the eruption, a small portion of the pink terraces was reportedly rediscovered under Lake Rotomahana. The event was tragic, but some locals believe it was predicted. 11 days before the eruption, a boat full of tourists returning from the terraces saw what appeared to be a waka, a traditional canoe, approach their boat. How huge was their shock and surprise when they saw the very same boat disintegrate into mist before their very eyes, when the boats were just half a mile from each other. At that moment, the witnesses didn't see it as a bad omen, but after the disaster, the survivors connected the dots. One of the witnesses was a clergyman, a local Maori man from the Te Arawa Iwi, adding to the credibility of the tale. Nobody around the lake owned such a specific war canoe. It was very archaic, and nothing like it had been seen on the lake for many years. A logical explanation of this phenomena says that the rise and fall of the lake level caused by pre-eruption fissures had freed a burial waka from its resting place. And it could be fair, but it doesn't explain the sudden disappearance of the vessel on the eyes of the other crew. What do you think of it? The HMS Eurydice was a 26-gun Royal Navy corvette which was the victim of one of Britain's worst peacetime naval disasters. The ship did not succumb to an enemy's bullets, but to the intense climate conditions. Originally designed by Admiral George Elliot, the second vessel named Eurydice was a very fast frigate designed with a very shallow draft to operate in, analogically, shallow waters. At first, it served on the waters of North American and West Indies Station between 1843 and 1846 under the command of its first captain, George Augustus Elliot, who happened to be a son of its own builder. Its second commission between 1846 and 1850 was spent on the South African station named after Cape of Good Hope. The third commission, under Captain Erasmus Amani, then replaced by Captain John Walter Tarleton, It saw its first sent briefly to the White Sea during the Crimean War and then to the North American and West Indies station again. Eurydice was then out of service for the next 20 years, and then was converted into a stationary training ship in 1861. In 1877, the ship was refitted at Portsmouth and by John White at Cowes for seagoing service as a training ship. Just no longer stationary, if that makes sense. After said recommission, Eurydice sailed from Portsmouth on a 3-month tour of the North America and West Indies station, settling in the famous Bermuda. On March 6, 1878, it began a return voyage from the Royal Naval Dockyard in Bermuda for Portsmouth. After a very fast passage across the Atlantic, on March 24, 1878, Eurydice was caught in a heavy snowstorm off the Denoes headland at the Isle of Wight, and subsequently capsized and sank in Sandown Bay. Only 2 of the ship's 319 crew and trainees survived. Most of those who were not carried down with the ship died of exposure in the freezing waters. The captain, though, in an attempt to save the people with prayer, sank himself along with the vessel. And maybe, just maybe, the prayers of the captain worked in some way. Because despite the ship's and its crew long since death, the phantom Eurydice has been reportedly sighted frequently by sailors over the years since its sinking, and the apparition is said to haunt Denoes ever since. What's more, the famous Prince Edward of the United Kingdom reportedly saw the 3-masted ship off the Isle of Wight in the year 1988, while filming for the television series Crown and Country. And the film crew claimed to have captured its image on film. I couldn't find the video anywhere, though. Maybe you can, just let me know. What's more, there is also a story from Commander F. Lipscomb of a Royal Navy submarine which took evasive action to avoid the ship, only for it to disappear. The name Elizabeth sounds mighty and fierce, but this now famous ship was once but was a Tombigbee River steamboat that ran a route between Columbus, Mississippi, and Mobile, Alabama. The peak of its activity falls in the United States during the 1850s. The vessel was ultimately destroyed in a fire on the river near modern Pennington, Alabama, on March 1, year 1858. So, what caused it to become a phantom? Captained by Mr. Grandstone and with Daniel Epps as pilot, the Elizabeth departed Columbus in the last days of February 1858. Only able to negotiate the Tombigbee that far north during the regular flooding of the river during the winter, the ship made its way downriver with stops at Pickensville, Gainesville, Demopolis, and numerous small river landings. A day like every day for a standard commercial ship. By the time it left the port of departure, the ship was fully loaded with passengers and more than 1,200 bales of cotton. It set off, people expecting nothing out of the ordinary. But the night that day was extremely cold and strong winds soon started blowing. At roughly 2 a.m. on March 1, 1858, about 51 kilometers downriver from Demopolis, near Beckley's Landing, the cotton bales on the main deck were discovered to be on fire. The fire soon spread, carried by the ever-blowing icy wind. Meanwhile, the boat continued downstream out of control. Cut off from the lifeboat by the flames, the passengers, dressed only in their nightclothes, were forced to seek refuge in the icy river. Some survived by floating atop cotton bales. Others must have succumbed to the waves, the exhaustion and the unbearable cold of the depths. And just like that, the vessel reached a port, consumed by flames, with few survivors who refused to leave the ship, in need of immediate medical help. And just like that, an ordinary sail turned into a battle for life and death that many lost that night. No battle heat. No struggling. Just a cruel fate. No one knows what caused the cotton reserves to catch fire. No one knows what happened to those that decided to jump off the ship and were never rescued. Simply, one moment the crew and the ship was intact, Another moment brought pure horror. Perhaps it's this sudden, tragic fate that caused the shipwreck's apparition to be seen later on by the locals. Burning and struggling against wind as it did when the people were alive. In Catherine Wyndham's The Phantom Steamboat of the Tombigbee, a description mirrors the newspaper accounts of the disaster at that time. It is purported in the story that sightings of the ship tend to happen on cold and windy winter nights, with the ship, fully engulfed in flames, appearing on the river near the same locations where the disaster occurred. Perhaps, the apparition indeed is the lost and forgotten soul's cry for help and remembrance. The Iron Mountain was a stern wheeler that plied the Mississippi River for 10 years until sinking in 1882. Despite many legends arising about its suspected unexplained disappearance, the ship was confirmed to drown in 1882. The ship cruised the waters of Mississippi for 10 years, before it hit an obstruction at Stumpy Point, near Island 102, which holed her hull and sank her. Most of the crew escaped the disaster, but a stewardess, Ellen Anderson, was crushed to death beneath the deck. The deceased stewardess' body have been recovered from beneath the parts of the wreck, but the ship itself was nowhere to be seen. This led to many conspiracy theories about its mysterious disappearance, despite many survivors witnessing the sinking firsthand. The sinking of the ship was reported locally, with articles appearing in the March 27 edition of the Vicksburg Daily Commercial, and the March 28 issue of the Daily Memphis Avalanche. A few days ahead and the wrecked ship itself had reappeared onto the surface, having been flushed upwards by the waves of a recent flood. Conspiracy theories persisted, though, as they tend to. It is also rumored that the steamer SS Valentia was cursed due to Iron Mountain's supposed disappearance. It was under construction at the time of the incident, and after years of schemes, incidents, and complaints of ship's ability to handle heavy seas and the thickness of its bulkheads, the vessel ran aground on the Washington coast, and sank with only 37 survivors. The superstitious locals believe it was the sinking, or disappearance, of Iron Mountain that somehow cursed the other ship's fate. No reported sightings of this ship in ghost form, nor of the famous light-like apparitions exist to my knowledge, but the thick air of mystery and legend that arose about it is enough to label it a ghost ship. Albeit, a very unlucky one who might have not deserved the title at all. The Rouse Simmons was a three-masted schooner built in Milwaukee in 1868 by Allen, McClelland, and Company, and named after Kenosha businessman of the same name. The schooner was soon purchased by wealthy lumber magnate Charles H. Hackley of Muskegon, Michigan, and joined his already large fleet. The magnate's ships all served across most of Lake Michigan's coastline, and the Rouse Simmons itself became a workhorse, shipping lumber from company mills to several ports around the lake for around 20 years, at the peak of its service, making almost weekly routes. After its service for Hackley, the ship exchanged hands several times until it landed at Herman and August Schuneman's hands. The brothers made Simmons their commercial ship for transport of luggage. In Schuneman Brothers' case, these were Christmas trees traded between lands since 1980s. Such was Simmons' fate until the fateful day of November 23, 1912. Herman Schuneman, the only brother remaining alive, loaded the schooner with 5,500 trees from Thompson Harbor near Manistee, Michigan, and planned to make the week-long journey to Chicago. The difficult weather had discouraged his competitors from making their own journeys, and snow had covered the tree farms in Michigan and Wisconsin. Believing it would be no problem for the schooner, the captain set off. He hoped that the resultant shortage of Christmas trees would lead to a huge profit and solve his financial problems. Sadly, he was wrong. The weather, at first calm, soon turned sour. Not only that, despite this, the journey began at noon, with trees crammed into every possible corner of the ship. The weight of the trees was far above recommendations of the cargo, especially in the bad winter weather, and was certainly going to contribute to the tragedy. And the tragedy indeed did happen. As the day progressed, the storms worsened, ice formed on the sodden trees and winds battered the hull. When the Kewanee Life-Saving Station spotted the Rouse Simmons on November 23, 1912, it was low in the water with tattered sails, flying its flag at half-mast to signal that it was in distress. The station's keeper, Nelson Crotchet, telephoned the nearest other station, George E. Sogi of Two Rivers, located just south of Kewanee, sent out the power boat Tuscarora on a rescue mission, but the Rouse Simmons was not seen again. Until December 1912, Christmas trees and wreckage were reported ashore at Pintwater, Michigan. Much later, in 1971, the wreck itself was discovered by scuba diver Gordon Kent Bell Richard from Milwaukee. No people have been found in the wreck. A forensic study of the wreck suggested that the ship had steerage and was sailing for shelter when it sank. The mizzen mast snapped off above the deck and the upper portion was not located. The main mast was found forward and to the port side of the wreck with the base missing, but the foremast was intact. The tragedy is horrifying enough. But then, for years afterwards, Lake Michigan mariners allegedly claimed to have spotted the Christmas tree ship appearing out of nowhere with its sails in tatters. And such anonymous sightings of the apparitions are said to continue for decades. As for the captain, tragically dead from the incident, the Schooneman's widow lived more than 20 years after his death, and upon her death, was laid to rest next to her husband in a Chicago cemetery. Their joint headstone bears a tiny engraved Christmas tree between their names. Say what you want, I say that's cute as fuck. And equally heartbreaking. SS Valentia was an iron-hulled passenger steamer built for the Red D Line for service between Venezuela and New York City, built in 1882 by William Grant and Sons Company, the same one who constructed a less-known ship Caracas. The ship weighed 1,598 tons and spanned 77 meters in length. The vessel's fate was not a calm one, as in 1897 already, Valencia was deliberately attacked by the Spanish cruiser Reina Mercedes off Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Our ghost ship didn't become ghost at that point yet, so it's safe to assume it returned to its port safe and relatively sound. The next year, Valencia became a coastal passenger liner on the U.S. West Coast and periodically served in the Spanish-American War as a troop ship to the Philippines. But this conflict, the ship also survived, despite being personally attacked and shot at by Spanish vessel, by the name Reina Mercedes. Imagine being shot by something that stupid sounding. You can lynch me now in the comments, lol. In 1898, Valencia was sold to the Pacific Steam Whaling Company, which brought it around Cape Horn to the United States West Coast. From here, it served between San Francisco, California and the territory of Alaska. The same year it was used as a war vessel, after which it was brought back to civil service. People didn't like it though. They kept butthurting that the vessel is too small, too slow and all that stuff. So Valencia didn't have a good name among commercial ship. Because people are assholes. That's not all to its bad name, sadly. In 1901, Valencia's purser was arrested for overpricing tickets and embezzling the additional money. Following the scandal, the ship was sold off to the Pacific. In January 1906, the Valencia was temporarily diverted to the San Francisco-Seattle route to take over from another ship that was during a repair at that time. The weather that was great at first, turned 180 degrees in the evening, with strong winds blowing and visibility being strongly reduced. Unable to make celestial observations, the ship's crew was forced to rely on dead reckoning to determine their position. Of course, it failed and the ship collided with a reef, damaging it strongly enough for water to start flowing in uncontrollably. The captain ordered moving the vessel onto the large rocks, so it won't drown. Sadly, all shit hit the fan. Despite captain's orders, people started panicking and leaving the ship on their own volition. Lowered and improperly manned lifeboats soon became a doom for the people who attempted to use it to save themselves. Some capsized, others disappeared. People kept dying and captain who wanted to stop it, could only watch. Only 12 men made it to shore, and of those, 3 were washed away by the waves after landing. The remaining 9 men scaled the cliffs and following a hanging telegraph cable, made their way to a lineman's cabin, thus being able to call for help and from a safe place. The rescue ship was soon sent, and while being in sight of Valencia, many remaining crew members set out to the rescue ship on top of the remaining lifeboats. Sadly, others stayed on board, most likely believing that if the help already is so close, they would swim to the ship and help them too. Sadly, the other ship couldn't get close enough without the risk of damaging itself too. When the overland party arrived at the cliffs above the site of the wreck, they could see dozens of passengers clinging to the rigging and the few unsubmerged parts of Valencia's hull. Not long afterwards, the ship's lone funnel collapsed. With the funnel being the last full means of protection to anyone on board, the waves were now able to completely wash over Valencia's deck, leaving all at the mercy of the waves. Sadly, the rescue ship had no more lifelines to help the drowning crew. Valencia's dramatic end has made it the subject of several local rumors and ghost stories. 6 months after the sinking, a local Nuchonilth fisherman, Clan Uatam, and his wife reported seeing a lifeboat with 8 skeletons in a nearby sea cave at the shoreline of Pachena Bay. Whether the ship was an actual wreckage carried by the waves, or an apparition is unknown. When transporting the survivors of Valencia to Seattle, City of Topeka stopped in the water to relay the news of Valencia's foundering to a passing vessel. Some observers on board claimed they could make out the shape of Valencia within the black exhaust emanating from City of Topeka's funnel. The ship was reportedly littered with human skeletons. The crew of the witnesses' ship claimed they saw Valencia heading into the reef and colliding again, just as it did when its crew was alive. As if the phantom of the vessel was forced to relive its tragic fate again and again. After the gruesome sighting, the Topeka continued on with no other incidents, but the crew remembered the apparition for long after. And they were not the only ones. In 1910, the Seattle Times, a very mainstream and non-conspiracy paper, reported that several sailors claimed to have seen a phantom ship resembling Valencia near Pachena Point. The sailors observed waves washing over the phantom steamer as human figures held onto the ship's rigging for dear life. Similar apparitions were supposedly reported for years following the disaster. The Young Teaser is a 1813s launched privateer that captured 12 British vessels, with 5 of which being able to reach American port. This led to many conflicts between the ship and its crew and other mariners faring on the same waters. Many American privateers attacked British shipping off the coast of Nova Scotia during the War of 1812, which forced the British to deploy warships to patrol North American waters to forestall attacks and capture the American raiders. The Young Teaser was one of such ships launched for such purpose. The Royal Navy tried to protect British merchant shipping to and from Halifax, Nova Scotia and the West Indies while enforcing a blockade of major American ports aimed at restricting American trade. One side attacked the other bite back, and so, it was clear they had a mini war on waters. Initial cruises of Young Teaser were pretty successful. In May 1813, the ship captured the British prize Invincible Napoleon and sent it into Portland, Maine, where the vessel arrived around 1st of June. On 23rd of May, Young Teaser captured another one, the Falmouth Post Office Packet Service Packet-10. The vessel slowly gained popularity for all that it slowly became like a police car patrol on the seas, and rivaling British ship sailors didn't like it in the slightest. On the same year, the vessel captured USS Chesapeake outside Boston Harbor and decided to let its crew go, as they perceived them as a ballast. Big mistake. When the vessel reached Halifax, the USS's people reported the privateer's presence and description. This led the ship to being discovered, and during the same cruise on Halifax Harbor it barely escaped possible capture by running into the harbor and raising British colors. The British discovered the ruse, but only after Young Teaser had left. A number of British warships sailed unsuccessfully in search of it. On June 13, 1813, the 74-gun third-rate Hogue, commanded by Thomas Bladen Capel, encountered Young Teaser and forced the ship into Halifax Harbor, but it escaped the harbor again. Mere days later, the frigate HMS Orpheus chased Young Teaser into Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, but then lost it near Mahone Bay due to weather condition. Hogue managed to find and capture young teaser bear the Mahogany Bay, and soon, both Hogue and Orpheus started firing at the young teaser. In the evening, Hogue prepared to send a boarding party in 5 of its boats. Aboard teaser, Captain Dobson discussed plans to defend the privateer with his crew, reduced to 38 men by prize crews sent off in captured vessels, but the peaceful negotiations soon turned into an argument as young teaser's captain didn't want to listen. What happened after the argument is up for the interpretation, but soon enough the young teaser exploded and caught fire, leaving captain and most of his small crew dead. 8 people survived the incident and were soon taken into safety by local residents, as they needed urgent care due to severe burns. The ship became a wreck though. The story of young teaser inspired one of the best-known ghost ship stories in Atlantic Canada, the so-called Teaser Light. The folklore states that a fiery glow or a flaming ship regularly appears on Mahone Bay near the site of the explosion, often near the 27th of June anniversary. Accounts were first recorded in the late 19th century, as folklorist Helen Creighton documented numerous versions of the story in her classic folklore book Bluenose Ghosts, although she noted that many sightings might be optical illusions during full moons. Many light-like apparitions, strange glows of will-o'-the-wisp-like phenomena around fateful Mahone Bay are attributed to the phantom apparitions of tragically destroyed ship and its crew.